We live in a world drowning in information, yet starving for understanding. And sometimes, when you pause long enough to feel the noise around you, you may notice something unsettling. Despite all the knowledge we have access to, thinking deeply feels harder than ever. This chapter is the quiet beginning, a moment to step back, breathe, and examine the mental landscape we've stopped noticing. Critical thinking was once humanity's superpower. Not the kind that made you stronger or faster, but the kind that made you aware. It helped our ancestors question traditions, examine reality, and navigate uncertainty. It allowed people to rise above instinct and choose their direction rather than drift with the current. But look around today. Most people aren't choosing anything. They're scrolling, reacting, absorbing, and repeating. Life moves fast, and somewhere, thinking became optional, then inconvenient, then almost forgotten. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you slowed down enough to study your own thoughts with clarity? Most people don't. Not because they don't want to, but because the world never stops long enough for them to hear themselves. Humanity didn't always live like this. Go back thousands of years, and you'll find the earliest thinkers Socrates, Confucius, Buddha men, who spent hours, even days, wrestling with simple questions like, what is truth? Or how should a human live? They didn't have phones, or podcasts, or notifications interrupting their introspection. They had silence. And in that silence, they learned to question everything, including themselves. Socrates walked the streets of Athens, asking questions not to win arguments, but to expose illusions. Confucius encouraged self-examination and virtue. These early thinkers realized something essential. The quality of your mind determines the quality of your life. If your thinking weakens, your choices follow. And if your choices weaken, your life follows. Fast forward to the Enlightenment. Descartes, Locke, and Kant shaped the foundation of modern critical thinking. They insisted that reason, not authority, not tradition, should guide us. They believed truth was something a person could reach through effort, discipline, and humility. And for a long time, that belief elevated society. So what happened? Somewhere between the 20th century and now, thinking transformed from a necessity into a luxury. And in its place came speed, convenience, entertainment, and chaos. The modern mind is overwhelmed. Every day, you consume more information than someone in the 18th century encountered in months. But your brain hasn't evolved to match the pace. It still processes reality the way it did thousands of years ago, slowly, carefully, painfully. So when the world hits it with an avalanche of headlines, videos, opinions, debates, and emotional triggers, the mind takes a shortcut. It stops thinking and starts reacting. It stops analyzing and starts absorbing. It stops questioning and starts agreeing. People believe things not because they're true, but because they're repeated. Not because they've examined them, but because they're familiar. And truth becomes something people scroll past rather than something they pursue. This is how self-deception begins, not with a lie, but with exhaustion. But the real danger isn't just that deep thinking is fading. It's that the structures around us, media, technology, algorithms, reward shallow thinking. Headlines shrink. Content speeds up. Outrage goes viral. Reflection disappears. And without noticing, people start living in mental bubbles designed for them, not by them. Yet despite all this, your mind is still yours. It can be reclaimed. Deep thinking isn't a lost art, it's a neglected one. And every human has the capacity to restore it. But doing so requires patience, curiosity, discomfort, and honesty. It requires slowing down in a world that constantly demands acceleration. It requires questioning assumptions in a society that rewards agreement. It requires courage to face truths that are inconvenient, unsettling, or painful. But here's the quiet truth most people never realize. critical thinking isn't just about finding truth. It's about finding yourself. Because the moment you learn to question your beliefs, your patterns, your emotions, your stories, that's the moment your real life begins. Not the life handed to you, but the life you consciously choose. In the next chapter, we'll dive into something even more uncomfortable. Why we run from truth in the first place. Why the mind avoids clarity. Why lies feel safe. Why we deceive ourselves even when we don't intend to. Because to understand truth, you must first understand why you hide from it. If truth is so powerful, so transformative, so essential to growth, why do we run from it? Why do we resist the very thing that could save us from failure, heartbreak, regret, or stagnation? The answer is uncomfortable. Truth threatens the parts of us we're most protective of. Our ego, our identity, our comfort, our illusions. Humans don't avoid truth because we're weak. We avoid it because we're wired to. Your mind is not designed for honesty. It's designed for survival. And survival favors comfort over clarity. Let's break this open gently. And honestly, you know that moment when you avoid checking your bank balance? Or when you ignore a medical symptom because you don't want to know? Or when you avoid confronting a relationship issue because it might force a change? That's the ego doing its job. The ego hates anything that makes you feel wrong, incompetent, guilty, or exposed. And truth often does exactly that. Truth forces you to confront your flaws, your mistakes, your fears, your insecurities, your blind spots. So the ego whispers, "Not now. Don't look. It's fine. We'll deal with it later." Later becomes never. Cognitive dissonance, the psychological discomfort of holding two conflicting ideas, kicks in. Instead of reshaping our beliefs to match reality, we reshape reality to match our beliefs. We twist. We justify. We rationalize. We edit. We avoid. This is self-deception in its purest form. Your brain has one mission: protect you from pain. Emotional pain is treated almost the same way as physical pain. When a truth threatens your sense of self, your mind interprets it as danger. That's why criticism hurts so much. Why feedback feels personal. Why admitting fault feels like losing a piece of yourself. Truth forces change. And change feels unsafe. So instead of embracing reality, the brain chooses safety through illusion. Better the comforting lie than the uncomfortable. Truth. Better the familiar problem than an unfamiliar solution. Better the predictable disappointment than the unpredictable unknown. People stay in bad jobs, bad relationships, bad habits, not because they don't know the truth, but because they fear what accepting the truth will force them to do. Do you know why fantasies are so seductive? Because they're painless. The truth demands action. Lies demand nothing. Truth demands courage. Lies demand comfort. Truth forces you to grow. Lies allow you to stay the same. Your brain loves delusion because it provides immediate emotional relief. I'll start tomorrow. I'm doing my best. This isn't really a problem. I can change whenever I want. They're the ones at fault, not me. These lies aren't malicious. They're self-soothing. The problem is that soothing becomes suffocating, and comfort becomes a cage. There's a reason people cling to beliefs long after they stop making sense. Beliefs are not just ideas, they're identity. If you tell someone they're wrong, you're not just challenging their argument. You're challenging who they believe they are. This is why political debates never end well. Why religious conversations escalate. Why people defend toxic behaviors. Why admitting mistakes feels like humiliation. Changing a belief feels like losing a familiar version of yourself. And humans cling to identity, even painful identities, with fierce loyalty. Sometimes you avoid the truth not because it's wrong, but because accepting it means becoming someone new. and becoming someone new feels like a kind of death. Avoiding truth feels safe, but it is quietly destructive. When you avoid your flaws, you repeat them. When you avoid your fears, they grow. When you avoid your emotions, they control you. When you avoid reality, life has a way of correcting you harshly. Truth is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Every painful truth you ignore today becomes the crisis you face tomorrow. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop running from truth, it becomes less frightening. It becomes a guide, a mirror, a compass. Facing truth doesn't break you. Avoiding truth does. And once you understand the psychological mechanics behind avoidance, you start noticing something powerful. You're not avoiding truth because you're weak. You're avoiding truth because you're human, which means you can unlearn it. You can train yourself to see clearly. You can teach your mind to welcome truth instead of fear it. But to do that, we need to understand a deeper force, one far more subtle and invisible. Not just why individuals avoid truth, but how society itself teaches us to lie to ourselves. That's where we go next. We like to believe self-deception is personal, that it comes from our fears, our insecurities, our ego. But the truth is much bigger. We don't just lie to ourselves because we want to. We lie to ourselves because society trains us to. From the moment you're born, you're handed a script, a story, a set of expectations, a map of who you should be. And before you even learn to speak, you begin learning something far more subtle: how to hide your authentic self. Society doesn't sit you down and say, "Here are the lies you must believe." It teaches them quietly through reward, punishment, culture, and imitation. Let's peel back the layers. When you were a child, you told the truth bluntly. Kids don't filter. They don't pretend. They don't perform. Then something changes. You say something honest, and someone responds. Don't say that. Be polite. You're making people uncomfortable. Act normal. Stop being dramatic. Don't question adults. You learn fast. Truth isn't always welcome. Authenticity has consequences. Being yourself comes with risks. So you adjust. You shrink. You smile when you don't want to. You nod even when you disagree. You hide emotions that feel unacceptable. You pretend to be unbothered when you're hurting. Society rewards the mask more than the mind. Over time, you don't just wear the mask. You become it, and that's where self-deception begins. When the performance becomes more familiar than the person behind it. Every society tells stories about success, happiness, morality, identity, work, love. But those stories are simplified, convenient, easy to digest. Life becomes a collection of slogans, not truths. Follow your passion. Good things happen to good people. Everything happens for a reason. You can be anything you want. Comforting? Yes. True? Not really. Useful? Sometimes. Dangerous? Often. We inherit these narratives without questioning them. They shape the way we think, judge, and interpret life. But most of these stories aren't designed for truth. They're designed for stability, for order, for predictability. When life contradicts these cultural narratives, we don't question the narrative, we question ourselves. And that's the trap. If you've ever looked online and thought, everyone is doing better than me, you've already seen the illusion at work. Media especially social media, is not reality. It is a curated stage where everyone performs their best moments and hides the rest. You're comparing your messy behind the scenes to someone else's polished highlight reel. Influencers look perfect because imperfection doesn't sell. Marketers create desires you didn't know you had. Brands manufacture identities and lifestyles you're supposed to chase. You don't just get sold products. You get sold illusions. And illusions are the fuel of self-deception. The message is subtle but constant. You're not enough yet. Fix yourself. Buy this. Achieve that. Become more. When society constantly tells you you're lacking, you begin lying to yourself just to cope. I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm successful. I don't care. Even when the truth is whispering otherwise. Humans are social creatures. Our brains evolved to care about belonging more than truth. Acceptance meant survival. Rejection meant danger. So even today, thousands of years later, we fear judgment more than we fear deception. You compare yourself to coworkers, friends, influencers, classmates. And comparison triggers performance. You hide your failures so you appear strong. You hide your doubts so you appear wise. You hide your weaknesses so you appear confident. Slowly, your self-image becomes a negotiation between who you are and who you think others want you to be, and the real you, buried beneath layers of social conditioning. Here's the part people don't like hearing. The more honest you are, the more resistance you face. If you tell the truth about your mental health, people say you're negative. If you challenge injustice, people say you're difficult. If you express vulnerability, people say you're weak. If you question the system, people say you're rebellious. But if you stay silent, if you comply, if you smile and pretend, you fit in. Society isn't built to reward truth. It's built to maintain comfort. And that's why self-deception is so widespread. It's not a personal failure, it's a cultural training. Once you understand that your self-deception is not random but conditioned, you gain something powerful. Awareness. And awareness breaks the spell. Because now you can see the lies you inherited, not just the ones you created. You can unlearn them, and you can finally start telling yourself the truth. But before we can reclaim authenticity, there's a deeper layer still hidden. Your own brain is engineered to distort reality, and that is exactly where we go next. You've seen how individuals avoid truth. You've seen how society encourages that avoidance. But there's one final, unavoidable layer. Your own brain is engineered to deceive you, not out of malice, not because you're flawed, but because evolution prioritized survival over accuracy. Your ancestors didn't need perfect truth. They needed fast decisions, quick judgments, emotional instincts, certainty, even when it was false, and those instincts still live in you. Your mind doesn't show you reality. It shows you a version of reality filtered through fear, ego, memories, and shortcuts. Let's uncover the invisible lies your brain tells you every day. This is the king of cognitive deception. Confirmation bias means you pay more attention to information that supports what you already believe and ignore anything that contradicts it. If you think someone dislikes you, you notice their silence, not their kindness. If you believe you're unlucky, every bad moment becomes proof. If you think you're not good enough, mistakes feel like confirmation, not learning. Your brain loves consistency more than truth. It would rather keep you comfortably wrong than uncomfortably right. This is why people argue endlessly online. Why debates never change minds. Why people stay stuck in the same identity for decades. We bend the world to fit our beliefs, instead of bending our beliefs to fit the world. You walk into a room and feel eyes on you. You make a mistake and think everyone remembers. You wear something unusual and assume people are judging. But here's the reality. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves to think about you. Your brain exaggerates your importance in other people's minds. This lie keeps you anxious. It keeps you afraid of embarrassment. It keeps you performing instead of living. If you truly understood how little people think about you, you'd be free. Humans naturally underestimate risks. Health issues, financial mistakes, relationship red flags. we assume we'll avoid them, not because there's evidence, but because the brain prefers hope to fear. Optimism bias feels good until life forces reality on you. People ignore fires while they're still small and manageable, and then wonder why their life feels like it's burning down. The truth doesn't hurt you. Avoiding the truth does. You don't remember events accurately. You remember your interpretation of them. And each time you recall a memory, you rewrite it slightly. Your memory is not a recording. It's a story you edit over time. This means you misremember conversations. You exaggerate your role in events. You soften your own mistakes. You inflate your own suffering. You adjust your past to protect your present. People can't let go of old pain because the story becomes more dramatic every time they remember it. Your brain lies to protect your identity. Like to believe you make decisions with reasoning. But studies show that almost all decisions start emotionally, and logic comes afterward to justify them. You don't choose with your mind. You justify with your mind. This is why we chase people who are bad for us. We spend money we shouldn't. We stay in situations that hurt us. We cling to beliefs long after they stop making sense. Your feelings drive the wheel. Even when logic thinks it's in control. It means your mind is not an enemy, but it isn't a reliable narrator either. It bends reality to protect you. It filters information to comfort you. It creates stories to stabilize your identity. Your brain lies to you not to hurt you, but to help you survive. Yet survival is not the same as living, and comfort is not the same as clarity. Now that you understand the invisible forces shaping your perception, you're ready for the final chapter, where we learn how to break free from illusion, confront reality, and reclaim inner truth. Now that you understand why truth is hard psychologically, socially, and biologically, you might feel like the odds are stacked against you. And in some ways, they are. But here's the part people underestimate. Self-deception isn't a prison, it's a habit. And habits can be broken. You don't fight illusion by force. You dissolve it with awareness, courage, and honesty. This chapter is your blueprint for reclaiming clarity. Most people avoid truth because they cannot tolerate the emotions that come with its shame. Fear, guilt, uncertainty. But discomfort isn't a sign you're breaking. It's a sign you're awakening. Sit with the feeling. Let it burn a little. The fear of truth is always greater than the truth itself. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is choosing honesty despite it. Start small. Ask yourself questions you normally avoid. What am I pretending not to know? What truth am I running from? What emotion am I covering with distractions? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? These questions disrupt the mind's autopilot. They shine a gentle light on the shadows you've been avoiding. Radical honesty isn't about self-criticism. It's about self-liberation. The more honestly you see yourself, the more power you have over your life. Your brain naturally hunts for information that confirms your beliefs. So train it to look for the opposite. When you believe something strongly, ask, what would someone who disagrees with me say? What facts challenge my view? What am I not seeing? This practice builds psychological flexibility. It makes your mind agile instead of rigid. It teaches you that changing your mind is not weakness, it's evolution. Truth becomes less frightening when you become emotionally resilient. A resilient mind understands mistakes are teachers. Failure is feedback. Criticism is data. Change is growth. The more resilient you become, the less you need illusions to protect you. You stop lying to yourself because you no longer fear what the truth demands. Imagine living a life where reality no longer intimidates you, where you meet truth with curiosity instead of defensiveness, where you heal instead of hide. That is what resilience gives you. At some point, you must stop outsourcing your reality to society, to the media, to your fears, to your past. Learn to trust your own mind. Think independently. Feel consciously. Observe without judgment. Challenge your assumptions. Question your impulses. Examine your reactions. The more you understand your inner world, the less control the outer world has over you. Self-awareness becomes your compass. Honesty becomes your shield. Truth becomes your foundation. And when truth becomes who you are, not something you chase, you become unstoppable. Self-deception is universal. We all lie to ourselves. We all run from truths that hurt. But you don't have to stay blind. You don't have to stay asleep. You can choose clarity. You can choose depth. You can choose truth. And the moment you do, everything changes. Your relationships, your decisions, your confidence, your purpose, your life. Truth isn't always beautiful, but it is always freeing. And in the end, a free mind is the rarest and most powerful thing a human can possess.